I returned from my morning run, and the police said, "Your neighbors reported hearing you screaming for help all night." I stood in my driveway, sweat cooling on my skin, earbuds still in my ears from the podcast I'd been listening to during my 5-mile loop through the neighborhood. 2 police officers waited by their patrol car, parked at the curb in front of my house. The taller one, Officer Denise Kramer, according to her nameplate, had her hand resting near her belt as she studied me with an expression I couldn't read. Her partner, Officer Louise Garrett, held a notepad. I pulled out my earbuds and checked my running watch. 7:23 a.m. I'd left at 6:30, same as every morning. "I'm sorry, what?" My voice came out steady despite the confusion flooding through me. "I just got back from running. I wasn't home last night screaming. I was sleeping." Officer Kramer's expression didn't change. "Mr. Colin Ashford? You live at this address with your wife, Rebecca Ashford?" I nodded, still, trying to process what she'd said. "Yes, but I don't understand. Who said they heard screaming?" Officer Garrett consulted his notepad. "We received calls from 3 separate neighbors starting at approximately 11:47 p.m. last night. They reported hearing a man screaming for help, sounds of a struggle, and what sounded like someone being hurt. The calls continued until around 3:30 a.m. We sent officers to do a welfare check at 12:15 a.m., but no one answered the door. We came back this morning to follow up." My mind raced. I'd gone to bed around 10:30 p.m. after watching a documentary with Rebecca. I'd slept through the night, hadn't I? I didn't remember waking up or screaming or anything unusual. There must be some mistake. I sleep heavily. I would know if I'd been screaming for hours. "Can I talk to my wife?" "She was home with me all night. She can confirm I was sleeping." Officer Kramer gestured toward my house. "Is your wife home now?" I looked at the driveway. Rebecca's car was gone, which was odd because it was Saturday morning and she usually didn't leave before 9. She must have gone out, maybe to the grocery store. I pulled out my phone to call her, but Officer Kramer held up a hand. "Mr. Ashford, we'd like to come inside and talk with you about what happened last night. Can you give us consent to enter?" Something about her tone made me uneasy, but I had nothing to hide. If neighbors had somehow heard something that wasn't me, we needed to figure out what was going on. "Of course, come in." I unlocked the front door and led them into the living room. Everything looked normal, exactly as I'd left it when I'd gone running. My water bottle from last night was still on the coffee table next to the TV remote. Officer Garrett walked through the room, looking around carefully. Officer Kramer stood near me. "Mr. Ashford, have you been experiencing any mental health issues recently? Confusion, blackouts, memory loss?" The question hit me wrong. "No, nothing. I'm completely fine. I work as an architect at Brennan & Associates. I run every morning. My life is completely normal and stable." Officer Kramer made a note. "Has your wife mentioned anything about you having episodes at night? Sleepwalking, night terrors, anything that might explain the screaming?" I shook my head firmly. "No, nothing. I've never had any issues with sleep. This doesn't make any sense." Officer Garrett returned from checking the other rooms. He spoke quietly to Kramer, and I caught fragments. "No signs of disturbance, and bedroom looks normal." Kramer turned back to me. "Mr. Ashford, the neighbors who called were very specific. They reported hearing a man's voice shouting things such as, 'Help me! Someone please help!' and 'She's going to kill me!' One neighbor said it sounded different from a nightmare, that it sounded like genuine terror and went on for hours. Another neighbor recorded some of the audio on their phone. Would you be willing to listen to it?" My blood went cold. "Someone recorded it?" "Yes, I need to hear it because I'm telling you it wasn't me." Officer Kramer pulled out her phone and played an audio file. The sound that came through the speaker made my stomach drop. It was a man's voice, hoarse and desperate, screaming, "Help me! Somebody help me! Please, I can't get out! She's going to kill me! Help!" The voice was muffled as if coming from inside a house, but it was clearly audible, and it sounded exactly like me. I felt dizzy. "I don't understand. That sounds like my voice, but I didn't scream anything last night. I was asleep. This is impossible." Officer Garrett stepped closer. "Mr. Ashford, is it possible you were having a severe nightmare and don't remember it? Or that you were in an altered state due to medication or substances?" I wanted to insist they were wrong, but the recording was undeniable. That was my voice, But how could I have been screaming for hours without knowing it? I don't take any medications, except occasional ibuprofen. I don't use drugs or drink heavily. Last night I had 1 beer with dinner. That's it. Officer Kramer's expression softened slightly. We need to make sure you're safe. The content of what you were screaming is concerning. You said she's going to kill me. Were you referring to your wife? The implication was clear. They thought Rebecca was hurting me, or that I was afraid of her. No, absolutely not. Rebecca and I have a good marriage. She's never hurt me or threatened me. This has to be some kind of misunderstanding, or maybe someone playing a recording or something. Officer Garrett looked skeptical. Mr. Ashford, 3 different neighbors heard this coming from your house. One of them actually came to your door around midnight to check on you, but when they knocked, the screaming stopped. They said they could see shadows moving inside through the window, but no one answered. Does that sound like a recording? I sat down heavily on the couch. None of this made sense. If I'd been screaming, why didn't I remember? If Rebecca had been home, why didn't she wake me or call for help? Where was she now? I need to call my wife. I dialed Rebecca's number. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. Rebecca, it's me. The police are here. They're saying neighbors heard me screaming last night. I don't know what's going on. Please call me back right away. I hung up and looked at the officers. She's not answering. That's unusual. She always answers when I call. Officer Kramer exchanged a glance with Garrett. Mr. Ashford, when did you last see your wife? I thought back. Last night around 10:15. We were watching TV together. She went to bed a few minutes before me. When I went to the bedroom, she was already asleep. This morning, when my alarm went off at 6:15, she was still sleeping. I got up quietly so I wouldn't wake her, changed into my running clothes, and left. I assumed she was still in bed. Officer Garrett made a note. But you didn't actually check the bedroom before you left this morning? I hadn't. I'd changed in the bathroom to avoid disturbing her. No, I didn't check. I just assumed she was there. Are you saying she wasn't? Kramer stood up. Mr. Ashford, I'd like your permission to check your bedroom and the rest of the house more thoroughly. I want to make sure your wife isn't here and injured or unable to respond. Fear spiked through me. Yes, of course. Check everywhere. The officers went upstairs while I waited in the living room, my mind spinning. The bedroom was empty. So was the guest room, the bathrooms, my office. Rebecca wasn't in the house. Her car was gone. Her phone wasn't being answered. But that meant she'd left sometime between 10:15 last night, when I'd last seen her, and 6:15 this morning, when I'd left for my run. Officer Kramer came back downstairs with something in her gloved hand. A pill bottle. Mr. Ashford, we found this in your nightstand drawer. Can you tell me what this, medication is? I took the bottle and read the label. Zolpidem, 10 milligrams. Prescribed to Colin Ashford by Dr. Stephen Rourke. Take 1 tablet at bedtime as needed for sleep. The prescription date was 3 weeks ago. I stared at the bottle, genuinely confused. I didn't get this prescription. I've never been to a doctor named Stephen Rourke. I don't take sleeping pills. Officer Garrett stepped closer. That's your name on the label. Are you saying someone forged a prescription in your name? I opened the bottle. It was half empty. If this prescription was filled 3 weeks ago and was for 30 pills, roughly 15 were missing. Had someone been giving me sleeping pills without my knowledge? I swear to you I didn't get this prescription and didn't know these pills were in my house. Someone else must have put them there. Officer Kramer took the bottle back. Mr. Ashford, I'm going to be direct with you. The situation we're looking at is concerning. You were heard screaming for help. For hours last night. You have a prescription for powerful sleeping medication that you claim isn't yours. Your wife is missing and not answering her phone. We need to figure out what's happening here, and we need to do it quickly. I felt panic rising. You think I hurt Rebecca? That's insane. I love my wife. She's fine. She just went out. She'll be back and she'll explain everything. Officer Garrett spoke carefully. We're not accusing you of anything right now, but we do need to locate your wife and make sure she's safe. Do you have any idea where she might have gone? Family she might visit? Friends? I pulled out my phone and started calling. Rebecca's sister, Amanda, no answer. Her best friend, Kelly, no answer. Her mother, no answer. I left voicemails asking them to call me immediately. No one's picking up, but Rebecca could just be at the gym or running errands. She doesn't always answer when she's busy. Officer Kramer wasn't buying it. Mr. Ashford, I need you to think very carefully. Has your wife seemed afraid of you recently? Has she mentioned wanting to leave? Have you had any arguments or conflicts? I wanted to insist everything was fine, but I forced myself to think back over the past few weeks. Had Rebecca been acting differently? There'd been a moment 2 weeks ago when I'd woken up groggy and disoriented, found Rebecca in the kitchen at 2 a.m. She'd said she couldn't sleep and was making tea. But she'd looked startled to see me, almost frightened. I'd gone back to bed thinking nothing of it. Then last week, I'd found her in my office going through my desk drawers. She'd said she was looking for stamps, but my desk wasn't where we kept stamps. And now that I thought about it, there'd been several mornings recently when I'd woken up feeling drugged and exhausted despite sleeping a full 8 hours. My mouth would be dry, my head foggy. I'd attributed it to stress at work, but what if it was something else? I don't know, I said honestly. I thought everything was fine, but now I'm remembering things that seemed off, times when I felt weird or when Rebecca's behavior seemed strange. I don't know what it means. Officer Kramer sat down across from me. I'm going to share something with you that we learned this morning. After we received the calls about screaming last night, we ran a check on this address. Your wife, Rebecca Ashford, filed a restraining order petition against you 3 days ago. It was denied due to insufficient evidence, but she claimed you'd been having violent outbursts, that she was afraid for her safety, and that she needed protection. Did you know about this? The room tilted. What? No. Rebecca never said anything about being afraid of me or filing for a restraining order. This is crazy. I've never been violent. I've never hurt her or threatened her. Officer Garrett pulled out his phone and showed me a document. It was a restraining order petition filed with the county court dated 3 days ago. Rebecca's signature at the bottom. The petition described incidents of me screaming at her, throwing objects, making threats. None of it had happened. None of it was true. She's lying, I said, my voice shaking. I never did any of these things. Why would she make this up? Officer Kramer leaned forward. That's what we need to figure out. But right now, we have a woman who filed a restraining order claiming she was afraid of her husband. Then last night, neighbors heard that same husband screaming that someone was going to kill him. Now the wife is missing. You can see how this looks concerning from our perspective. I could see exactly how it looked. It looked like I'd hurt Rebecca and she'd fled, or worse. But I hadn't. I'd been asleep all night. Or had I? The sleeping pills I didn't prescribe but were in my nightstand suggested something else was happening. I think Rebecca has been drugging me, I said suddenly. Those sleeping pills. I think she's been putting them in my food. Or drinks without me knowing. That would explain why I've been feeling so groggy in the mornings. And maybe that's why I don't remember screaming last night. Maybe I was so drugged that I had some kind of episode and don't remember it. Officer Garrett looked skeptical. Why would your wife drug you? I didn't have an answer. Rebecca and I had been married for 6 years. We'd met at a friend's wedding, dated for 2 years, got married in a small ceremony. We'd bought this house 3 years ago. Our lives were comfortable, stable. We both had good jobs. We'd been talking about starting a family soon. Why would she suddenly start drugging me and making false accusations? I don't know, but something is very wrong here. Officer Kramer stood up. Mr. Ashford, here's what's going to happen. We're going to put out a welfare check on your wife. We need to locate her and make sure she's safe. In the meantime, I strongly suggest you don't leave town and remain available for further questioning. We'll also be talking to your neighbors and gathering more information about what they heard last night. If you think of anything else that might help us understand this situation, call me immediately. She handed me her card. After the officers left, I sat in my living room trying to make sense of everything. I pulled up my phone and looked at recent calls and texts with Rebecca. Everything looked normal. Mundane conversations about dinner plans, reminders to pick up dry cleaning, a photo she'd sent me of a funny meme 2 days ago. Nothing suggesting fear or planning to leave. I went upstairs to our bedroom and started looking around more carefully. Rebecca's clothes were all in the closet. Her toiletries were in the bathroom. Her jewelry box was on the dresser. If she'd left, she hadn't taken much with her. I opened the nightstand drawer where the police had found the sleeping pills. There was other stuff in there, too. A notepad, some pens, a charging cable. I pulled out the notepad and flipped through it. Most pages were blank, but near the back, I found notes in Rebecca's handwriting. The notes were fragmented, almost like a list. Audio recording setup, neighbor witness statements, financial access, Dr. Rourke, 3 weeks minimum for credibility, police report timing critical. My hands started shaking as I read and reread the notes. This wasn't random. This was a plan. Rebecca had been planning something, orchestrating something. The audio recordings, the neighbors hearing screaming, the sleeping medication, the restraining order petition. This was all deliberate. But why? I heard a car in the driveway and looked out the window. Rebecca's sedan pulled up. She got out, looking calm and composed, carrying a coffee cup from a local cafe. She walked to the front door, unlocked it, and came inside. I met her in the entryway, holding the notepad. "Where have you been?" My voice came out harder than I intended. Rebecca looked surprised. "I went to get coffee and run some errands." "Why? What's wrong?" I held up the notepad. "The police were here. Neighbors reported hearing me screaming for help all night. You filed a restraining order against me 3 days ago claiming I'm violent. I found sleeping pills in my nightstand that I never prescribed. And I found these notes. Rebecca, what the hell is going on?" Her expression shifted, the surprise melting into something colder and more calculating. "Colin, I think you need to sit down. You're not well. You've been having episodes and you don't remember them. Last night you were screaming in your sleep for hours. It terrified me. I tried to wake you, but you were completely out of it. That's why I filed for the restraining order. I'm scared of what you might do." Her words were smooth, practiced. But they were lies. I could see it in her eyes. "You've been drugging me with those sleeping pills. I found your notes. You've been planning this, the audio recordings, getting neighbors to make statements, working with some doctor named Rourke. This is all fake. Why are you doing this?" Rebecca's mask slipped for just a moment. I saw anger flash across her face before she controlled it. "You sound paranoid, Colin. That's another symptom. You're accusing me of some conspiracy when really you're having a mental health crisis. I've been trying to help you, but you won't admit there's a problem." I pulled out my phone. "I'm calling the police back. They need to know you're here and that you've been setting me up." Rebecca moved fast. She grabbed my phone out of my hand and stepped back. "Don't. You're making this worse. If you call the police right now in this agitated state, you'll just prove my point that you're unstable." I reached for the phone, but she held it away. "Give it back, Rebecca." She shook her head. "Not until you calm down. Colin, listen to me. I know you don't understand what's happening to you, but you need help. I've been documenting your behavior because I want to make sure you get proper treatment. The restraining order was a mistake. I was scared and overreacted. But we can fix this if you just admit you need help." Everything she said was designed to make me doubt myself, to make me seem like the unstable one. And I realized that was exactly her goal. If I acted angry or agitated, it would support her narrative that I was violent and mentally ill. If I insisted she was lying, it would sound like paranoid delusions. She'd constructed a perfect trap. I forced myself to take a breath and speak calmly. "Okay, let's say you're right, and I'm having episodes I don't remember. Then we should go to a doctor together right now. A real doctor. Not this Dr. Rourke whose name is in your notes. Will get me evaluated by an independent physician and figure out what's wrong. If I'm sick, I need treatment. You'd agree to that, right?" Rebecca hesitated. That hesitation told me everything. If I was actually sick and she was actually concerned, she'd agree immediately. But she didn't want me seeing a real doctor, because a real doctor would find nothing wrong with me. They'd discover I'd been drugged without my knowledge. "That's a good idea," she finally said, but her tone was reluctant. "We can make an appointment next week." I shook my head. "No, today. Right now. This is serious enough that we need immediate attention. Give me my phone and I'll call my primary care doctor." Rebecca's expression hardened. "You're being unreasonable. Doctors don't take same-day appointments for something like this. You need to calm down and think rationally." I stepped toward her. "Give me my phone, Rebecca." She backed toward the door, still holding my phone. "I think I should leave for a while. Give you some space to calm down. I'll stay at Amanda's place tonight." She was running. She'd created this situation. But now that I was confronting her directly and demanding immediate medical evaluation, she was leaving. That meant whatever she'd been planning wasn't complete yet. She needed more time. "You're not leaving. We're figuring this out right now." I moved toward the door to block her exit. Rebecca's eyes widened and she screamed, loud, piercing, terrified. "Get away from me! Don't hurt me! Someone help!" I froze, stunned. She was still screaming, backing against the wall, her face a mask of terror. But I hadn't touched her. I wasn't even close to her. Then I heard it. Footsteps, running. The front door burst open and our neighbor, Dennis Crawford from next door, rushed in. He was in his 50s, retired military, someone I'd always gotten along with. He looked at the scene, at Rebecca screaming against the wall, at me standing in the middle of the room. "Rebecca, are you okay?" Dennis moved between us, putting himself as a barrier. "Did he hurt you?" Rebecca was crying now, her whole body shaking. "He's been threatening me. He won't let me leave. I'm so scared. Last night he was screaming and I couldn't make him stop. I don't know what to do." Dennis turned to me, his expression hard. "Colin, I think you need to step outside while we sort this out." I held up my hands. "Dennis, this isn't what it looks like. She's lying. She's been setting me up, making it seem like I'm violent when I'm not. She has my phone and won't give it back. She's been drugging me with sleeping pills I never prescribed. You have to believe me." Dennis didn't believe me. I could see it in his face. He believed Rebecca, who was crying and shaking and looking like a terrified victim. "Colin, just step outside. Don't make this worse." I wanted to argue, to explain, but I realized that anything I said or did right now would be used against me. Rebecca had orchestrated this perfectly. She'd screamed and brought in a witness who would testify that I was threatening her, that she was afraid. If I resisted or got angry, it would confirm her narrative. I stepped outside onto the porch. Through the window, I could see Dennis comforting Rebecca, could see him pull out his phone to make a call, probably to the police. I needed help and needed it fast. I ran to my car, realized I didn't have my keys or my phone. Both were inside the house. I looked around desperately and saw another neighbor, Phyllis Montgomery, watching from her yard. "Phyllis, can I borrow your phone? It's an emergency." Phyllis was in her 70s, sweet woman, who always brought us cookies at Christmas. She looked concerned and confused but handed me her phone. "What's happening, Colin?" I called 911. When the dispatcher answered, I spoke quickly. "This is Colin Ashford at 2847 Maple Grove Drive. I need police, and I need them to know that my wife has been fabricating evidence against me. She's been drugging me with sleeping pills and creating fake incidents to make it look like I'm violent. Right now, she's inside the house with our neighbor, and she's going to tell police that I threatened her, but it's not true. None of it is true. I need someone to come who will actually investigate what's really happening here." The dispatcher said officers were already on the way. Someone had called about a domestic disturbance at my address. Of course they had. Rebecca or Dennis had already called. I handed Phyllis her phone back and thanked her. 2 police cars arrived within minutes. Officer Kramer was in one of them. She got out and assessed the situation quickly. Rebecca had come outside with Dennis, still crying. I was standing in Phyllis's yard. Officer Kramer approached Rebecca first. "Mrs. Ashford, are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" Rebecca shook her head. "I'm okay physically, but I'm terrified. Colin has been acting unstable all morning. He found some notes I'd made and became paranoid, accusing me of drugging him and setting him up. He got aggressive and wouldn't let me leave. I had to scream for help. Our neighbor heard me and came over." Officer Kramer looked at me. "Mr. Ashford, is that accurate?" I kept my voice calm and steady. "No. Rebecca has been implementing a plan to make me look violent and mentally unstable. I have evidence. She has notes in her handwriting describing setting up audio recordings and coordinating neighbor witness statements. She filed a false restraining order against me 3 days ago. She's been secretly giving me sleeping medication to make me disoriented and unable to remember things. The screaming last night that neighbors heard wasn't random. It was part of her plan. I believe she played a recording of me screaming or somehow induced it while I was heavily drugged. This is all orchestrated." Officer Kramer looked between us. "These are serious accusations on both sides. I think we need to take this to the station and get formal statements from both of you." Rebecca nodded immediately. "Yes, I want to make a formal complaint. I want protection from him." I agreed, too. "Yes, and I want to file a complaint against her for fraud, drugging, and making false police reports. Officer Kramer arranged for Rebecca to ride with one officer while I rode with another. At the station, we were separated into different interview rooms. Detective Frank Delgado took my statement. He was in his 40s, experienced, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. I told him everything from the beginning, the police showing up this morning, the audio recording of screaming, the sleeping pills I never prescribed, Rebecca's notes, her restraining order petition, her performance for Dennis. Delgado listened carefully, taking notes. Mr. Ashford, do you have any proof of these allegations? The notes you mentioned, do you have them? I realized I'd left the notepad at the house in my shock at confronting Rebecca. They're at my house, in our bedroom. I can show you exactly where. Delgado made a note. We'll send officers to retrieve them. What about the sleeping medication? You said you never got that prescription. Can you prove that? I thought hard. You can contact Dr. Stephen Rourke, whose name is on the prescription bottle. I've never been to that doctor. If you check his records, he'll either have no record of me as a patient, which proves the prescription is forged, or he'll have records that were falsified, which means he's working with Rebecca. Delgado wrote that down. Okay, what about your medical records from your actual doctor? Can we get those to show you've never been prescribed sleep medication? I gave him my doctor's name and contact information. Yes, Dr. Laura Finch. I've been her patient for 4 years. She's never prescribed me sleeping pills. Delgado leaned back. Let me ask you something directly. Is it possible you're experiencing what your wife describes? Mental health episodes, memory loss, confusion? I'm not saying you are, but is it possible? I'd asked myself the same question all morning. Before today, I would have said absolutely not. But now I don't know what to believe. I know my memories feel real. I know I didn't scream last night as far as I remember. I know I never threatened Rebecca, but the audio recording exists. Neighbors heard it. So either I was drugged into doing it and don't remember, or Rebecca somehow faked it. Both seem impossible, but one has to be true. Delgado nodded. That's a fair answer. Here's what we're going to do. We'll investigate both versions of events. We'll check your medical records, contact Dr. Rourke, retrieve the notes from your house, interview neighbors, and review all the evidence. In the meantime, I need you to stay somewhere other than your home. Can you do that? I said I could stay at a hotel. Delgado said that was fine, but I needed to stay local and available. I gave him my contact information, and he let me go. I got a ride from a patrol officer to a hotel near the station. I checked in and sat on the bed, trying to process everything. I had no phone, no keys, no wallet beyond what I'd had in my running shorts. Everything else was at the house. I used the hotel phone to call my office and explain I was dealing with a family emergency and wouldn't be in on Monday. Then I sat in the quiet room and tried to think through what was happening. Rebecca had a plan. That was clear from her notes. But what was the end goal? We had a joint bank account with about $80,000 saved. We owned the house together with a mortgage. My job paid well, but we didn't have significant assets beyond that. Was she trying to get control of our money? Or was there something else? I thought about the restraining order petition that had been denied. If it had been approved, I would have been forced to leave the house. Rebecca would have had full access to everything. She could have emptied bank accounts, sold assets, done whatever she wanted. Then the sleeping pills and the screaming incidents. If she could make me seem mentally unstable or violent, she could potentially have me committed or get a different judge to approve a restraining order. That would also give her control. But why go through such an elaborate scheme? Why not just divorce me? Unless there was money involved that I didn't know about. Life insurance policies, debt, inheritance she wanted to keep. I needed information but had no way to access it without my phone or computer. I asked the hotel desk if I could use their business center. They gave me access to a computer with internet. I logged into my email and started digging. I found an email from 3 months ago from a life insurance company confirming Rebecca had increased my life insurance policy from $250,000 to $1 million. I'd never agreed to that increase. My signature was on the documents in the attachment, but I didn't remember signing them. Had Rebecca forged my signature? And why would she increase my life insurance unless she was planning for me to die? The realization hit me cold and hard. This wasn't about getting me committed or getting a restraining order. This was about killing me and making it look like suicide or an accident. Rebecca had been drugging me, creating a paper trail of mental instability and violent behavior. If I died under suspicious circumstances, she could claim I'd killed myself during a psychotic episode, or that I'd died accidentally while under the influence of medication. She'd collect $1 million, plus our house, savings, and anything else, and she'd get away with it because she'd spent weeks building evidence that I was unstable. I printed out the life insurance documents and called Detective Delgado from the hotel phone. I explained what I'd found. He listened carefully and said he'd look into it. "Mr. Ashford, if what you're saying is true, your wife has been planning something very serious. But we need hard evidence to prove it. The notes you mentioned are critical. We sent officers to your house to retrieve them, but your wife refused to let them in without a warrant. We're working on getting one, but it takes time." Of course. Rebecca had refused. She'd had hours to destroy the notepad. By the time police got a warrant, the evidence would be gone. "The sleeping pills," I said urgently. "Can you test me for drugs? If Rebecca has been drugging me, it should still be in my system. That would prove I was medicated without my knowledge." Delgado said that was a good idea. He arranged for me to go to the hospital for blood and urine tests. The hospital was only a few blocks away. I walked there and gave samples. The doctor said results would take 24 to 48 hours, but they'd put a rush on it given the circumstances. Back at the hotel, I felt helpless and trapped. Rebecca was at our house right now, probably destroying evidence, preparing her next move, and I was stuck in a hotel room with no resources and no way to prove what was happening. My phone rang. The hotel phone. I answered. "Mr. Ashford, this is Detective Delgado. We've got some preliminary information back. First, we contacted Dr. Stephen Rourke. He's a licensed psychiatrist, but he confirmed he's never treated you as a patient and never prescribed you sleeping medication. The prescription bottle with his name is fraudulent. We're investigating how your wife obtained that." I felt a surge of hope. "So that proves she's lying," Delgado continued. "It's evidence, but not conclusive on its own. We also checked your medical records with Dr. Finch. She confirmed you've been her patient for 4 years, and she's never prescribed you any psychiatric medications or sleeping aids. We're building a case that your wife has been giving you unprescribed medication." I asked about the notes. Delgado sighed. "We got the warrant and entered your home an hour ago. The notepad you described wasn't in the bedroom. Your wife says she doesn't know what notes you're referring to and suggests you might have imagined them due to mental health issues. However, we did a more thorough search and found something interesting. There's a storage unit rented in your name at a facility about 2 miles from your house. Did you know about this?" I didn't. "No, I've never rented a storage unit." Delgado's tone sharpened. "The rental agreement is in your name with your forged signature, paid for with a credit card you didn't know existed. We're getting a warrant to search that unit. I think whatever your wife has been planning, evidence of it might be there." I asked how they'd found out about the storage unit. Delgado said they'd interviewed neighbors. One neighbor, Phyllis Montgomery, mentioned she'd seen Rebecca loading items into her car several times over the past few weeks and driving away. When officers asked Rebecca where she'd been taking things, she'd been evasive. They'd checked financial records and found the storage unit rental. "Mr. Ashford, I want you to stay at the hotel and wait for my call. We're moving forward with this investigation aggressively now. If your wife is planning what you think she's planning, we need to act fast." I agreed and hung up. The wait was excruciating. I ordered room service and tried to eat, but couldn't. I turned on the TV, but couldn't focus. All I could think about was Rebecca going through our house, preparing whatever her next move was. Would she try to come after me directly? Would she stage some kind of accident? I checked the door locks multiple times and wedged a chair under the handle. At 11:47 p.m., Detective Delgado called. "Mr. Ashford, we searched the storage unit. You need to hear what we found." The storage unit contained boxes of documents, financial records showing Rebecca had taken out 3 credit cards in my name over the past 6 months and run up over $60,000 in debt. She'd been making minimum payments using cash advances from other cards, a pyramid scheme that would eventually collapse. There were printed emails between Rebecca and a man named Graham Foster. The emails detailed an affair that had been going on for 8 months. They discussed plans to start a new life together, but Rebecca needed money to leave me. Graham had suggested she could get money from my life insurance if I died. Rebecca had replied that she was working on making that happen, that she was documenting a pattern of mental instability and violence, so that when I died, it would look like suicide or an accident caused by my deteriorating mental state. There were more notes in Rebecca's handwriting, more detailed than the ones I'd found at the house. Step-by-step plans. Week 1 through 3, establish pattern of sleeping medication, keep Colin disoriented and compliant. Week 4, file restraining order petition citing violence to create legal record. Week 5, create audio evidence of screaming using recording taken during induced nightmare. Week 6, escalate to physical altercation where Colin attacks and Rebecca defends herself fatally, or stage accident such as fall downstairs or carbon monoxide poisoning that looks accidental given Colin's impaired state from medication. Detective Delgado's voice was grim. "Mr. Ashford, your wife was planning to murder you. We're arresting her tonight on charges of attempted murder, fraud, identity theft, and forgery. We've also issued a warrant for Graham Foster. The evidence is overwhelming." I felt relief and horror crash over me in equal measure. Rebecca had been planning to kill me. The woman I'd been married to for 6 years, who I'd trusted completely, had been systematically working toward my death. "What about the audio recording?" I asked. "The neighbors heard me screaming. How did she fake that?" Delgado explained that investigators found audio equipment in the storage unit. Rebecca had recorded me during a nightmare several months ago, probably induced by giving me drugs that caused night terrors. She'd edited and looped the recording, then played it through speakers placed in our attic directly above our bedroom. The sound traveled through the walls, loud enough for neighbors to hear, but not loud enough to wake me from my drugged sleep. She'd played the recording for hours on specific nights to establish a pattern, then filed the restraining order petition claiming I was violent. When that was denied, she'd escalated the plan to include direct physical confrontation where she'd kill me and claim self-defense, or stage an accident. The sleeping medication in your system, combined with her documented claims that you were mentally unstable, would have made her story believable. She's been building the perfect cover story for murder. I asked about the confrontation this morning with Dennis Crawford. Delgado said they'd interviewed Dennis, who admitted that Rebecca had approached him 2 days ago and mentioned she was afraid of me, planting the suggestion so that when she screamed today, he'd assume I was attacking her. Rebecca was arrested at our house at 12:30 a.m. Officers found her packing items preparing to leave. She'd assumed she had more time, that her performance earlier that day had been convincing enough to keep police focused on me as the unstable one. Instead, she was charged with attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, identity theft, forgery, and filing false police reports. Graham Foster was arrested at his apartment. He'd been aware of and involved in the entire scheme. He'd helped Rebecca research medications, had suggested the audio recording setup, and had been waiting for her to complete the plan so they could leave together with the insurance money. The blood tests came back, showing high levels of zolpidem and another sedative in my system, far beyond what a normal prescription would cause. Medical experts confirmed I'd been heavily drugged for an extended period, which explained my memory issues, grogginess, and inability to remember the nights Rebecca had played the recordings. The trial took place 7 months later. I testified about finding the sleeping pills, the notes, Rebecca's behavior. Neighbors testified about hearing the screaming, though they now understood it had been a recording. Dr. Rourke testified that his name had been used fraudulently. Detective Delgado presented the evidence from the storage unit, the financial fraud, the emails with Graham. The life insurance company testified about the policy increase I'd never authorized. Rebecca's attorney tried to argue that she'd been afraid of me and was documenting real concerns, but the evidence was too overwhelming. The premeditated nature of the plan, the emails with Graham discussing my death, the audio equipment, the forged documents, it all proved calculated intent to murder. The jury deliberated for 6 hours before finding Rebecca guilty on all counts. She received 25 years for attempted murder, plus additional sentences for the fraud charges to run consecutively. Graham Foster received 18 years as an accomplice to attempted murder and conspiracy. Dr. Rourke was cleared of wrongdoing but cooperated fully with the investigation. I sat in the courtroom when the sentence was read and felt nothing but emptiness. The woman I'd married and built a life with had tried to kill me for money. She'd drugged me, gaslit me, orchestrated an elaborate scheme to either have me committed or murdered, all so she could run away with her boyfriend and $1 million. The trust I'd had in her, in our marriage, in the life we'd built together, was shattered completely. After the trial, I sold the house. I couldn't live there anymore. Every room held memories that were now poisoned. I started over in a new city with a new job. The insurance company refunded the increased premium on the policy Rebecca had forged, and I reduced the coverage back to the original amount. I closed all joint accounts and credit cards, paid off the fraudulent debt after the courts confirmed I wasn't liable for it, and rebuilt my financial life from scratch. The psychological recovery took longer than the practical recovery. I had nightmares about waking up drugged and confused, about Rebecca standing over me with a pillow or pushing me down the stairs. I went to therapy twice a week for over a year. Slowly, I learned to trust again, to believe that not everyone was plotting against me, that my perceptions of reality were valid. 3 years after Rebecca's arrest, I met someone new. Catherine was a teacher, kind and genuine. I told her everything on our third date, laid out the whole story. I needed to know if she could accept my history, my damage, my paranoia. She listened without judgment and said everyone had pasts and scars. What mattered was how we moved forward. We built something real and honest, based on transparency and proof. I never took her word for anything without verification at first, and she understood. Gradually, trust grew. We got married in a small ceremony with close friends. No big celebration, no elaborate planning. Just 2 people committing to honesty and partnership. On the 5-year anniversary of the morning I returned from my run to find police in my driveway. I visited the prison where Rebecca was serving her sentence. I'd never gone before, never wanted to see her, but I needed closure. She looked older, harder. Prison had stripped away the polished veneer she'd always maintained. We sat across from each other in the visiting room with a glass barrier between us. I picked up the phone and she did the same. "Why?" I asked. The only question that mattered. Rebecca's expression was cold. "The money. Graham and I wanted a new start and you were in the way. Divorce meant splitting everything. Your death meant I kept it all." No remorse. No apology. Just cold calculation. "You tried to kill me for money. We had a life together." She shrugged. It wasn't enough. Graham offered more. I hung up the phone and left. I'd gotten my answer. There was no hidden reason, no complex motivation, just greed and selfishness. Some people were capable of monstrous things for shockingly mundane reasons. I never visited her again. Years later, I'm still running every morning. Same routine, same 5-mile loop, same podcast in my ears. But when I return home now, Catherine is there with coffee and a smile. The house is filled with light and laughter and trust that was earned slowly and proven daily. The nightmare of what Rebecca tried to do is a scar I carry, but it doesn't define me anymore. I survived. I rebuilt. And I learned that sometimes the most dangerous predators wear familiar faces and speak with loving voices. But the truth always surfaces eventually if you're brave enough to look for it and strong enough to believe it when everyone says you're crazy. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.